still remains within the sounds. Hear my words that I might.
And then just boom.
And echo in the wells of silence.
Yes, so Hairless here. Today we have The Sound of Silence by Peter Hollens and Tim Foust. This one is a special request, it's a Patreon request and the patron would like to remain anonymous. I was very happy to see this as the request for a few reasons. Firstly, recently I've been displaying particular admiration for Tim. If you don't know, Tim is the bass from the group Home Free. But in the last few reactions we've done to Home Free, we've seen that Tim's range is, well, essentially almost limitless. It's crazy. So I'm excited for that. Number 2, what a song. Sound of Silence from the 60s, Simon Garfunkel, just yes. And number 3, Peter Hollens. I don't know Peter Hollens, but I love discovering new artists. I have seen the name dotted around here and there in the comment sections before, but I've never seen nor heard him. I had a quick Google and he apparently founded the University of Oregon's a cappella group called On the Rocks. Aside from that, I want to keep it a surprise really. Tim has a crazy range as I just said, but he's mostly known for his basso profundo, the deep bass singing. So I'm curious to see what Peter will bring to the table here. The song itself, iconic, Sound of Silence. I'm sure it's touched and moved hundreds of millions of people since its birth. It's a song that I feel really deserves to be well known and well loved as it is today. One of the main things about Sound of Silence, I think, is actually its technical simplicity. And all I mean by that is there's not much going on in terms of texture. We've got the two voices singing in harmony with each other, a guitar or two. I think there are different versions, and in one version you have the drums as well. So with this performance here, I'm wondering quite a few things. I'm wondering how many parts there will be. Is it going to be strictly a cappella? Is there going to be a beat? And one of the standout features of the original song as well is Art Garfunkel's voice. It's just so floaty, it's so well known as part of the Simon and Garfunkel sound. So without further ado, I think let's just get straight into it.
Hello darkness, my old friend.
Don't worry, I'm not pausing already. I just want to quickly point out now that this is in the same key as the original. Let's go back to the start and start again.
Hello darkness, my old friend. I've come to talk with you again. Because a vision softly creeping left its seeds while I was sleeping, and the vision that was planted in my brain still remains within the sound of silence. In restless dreams I walked alone, narrow streets of cobblestone. Neath the halo of a street lamp, I turned my collar to the cold and damp. When my eyes were stabbed by the flash of a neon light that split the night and touch the sound of silence, and in the naked light I saw.
Wow, okay, I wanted to pause because otherwise we're just going to go all the way through. This is amazing, isn't it? I'd love to know who arranged it. Is it Peter who arranged this, or did Tim have some input? There's some really complex things going on. Let me know if you know. And the video as well, so cool. It kind of reminds me of Bohemian Rhapsody. But yeah, very cool. I guess they're really embracing the hello darkness, my old friend. As I said, there's some complex stuff that we've heard and I'll probably want to go over it in quite some detail. So if you're not into the analysis, you can go to this timestamp here to skip it. The first thing, the opening, really interesting. They're really going full in with the multi-tracking here, and I mean, why not? You know, it's two of you, and with an arrangement as we've seen like this, you're going to need the parts. But in the beginning, there's only 2 parts that we're hearing.
I've come to talk with you.
But they have multiple voices for it. It's a nice little touch. There was actually a third note on the word talk. Listen out for...
I've come to talk with you.
Not quite sure what that was. They've kept the exact same two melodic lines from the original, the same two lines that Paul and Art are singing, but there's no guitar and this is much more rhythmically free. It's much slower and the silences are really, really impactful. They're longer than we expect and they really grab our attention, which is so important at the start of a piece. I noticed that as it progressed that they were starting to introduce these different lines, if I'll call them that are very, very subtle and maybe are not heard by everyone. Here's an example of one I liked. It has a nice direction. It's sung on the words "left its seeds while I was sleeping."
Seeds while I was sleeping.
Actually, it's probably easier to cue Sir Hairless from the future to show this. Right, so this is the melody as we know it with the two lines. And then there's this line in the middle that is very, very quiet and subtle. But it just enriches the harmony. So who's singing that extra part? It sounds like Tim to me, but I don't know. I don't know Peter Hollens' voice yet. But the fact that it's difficult to tell, it's difficult to distinguish them is really, really great. It just shows how well they complement each other. That contributes to the overall tightness of this whole sound that we've heard. After this part, we start to get some really juicy chords. Chords that I like to say are good filth. Just as with that previous example though, the juicy notes are very, very quiet, very, very subtle, but they still stand out to me. How I mentally visually these juicy notes is like this. Let me quickly draw something up and then I'll just go over it. Right, so we have 100 squares here. If I said to you, find the one square I'm thinking of, there's a pretty slim chance of that, right? I'm sure we'll all agree. And now I say the same thing, find this one square. Well, it's much more obvious now because there's just one that's red. The red square is still significantly outnumbered by all the yellow squares, but it still stands out. And it's the same concept with music. Even if we add in some more colours, let's say that one colour is one note. So all of the green squares are the note C. All of the blue squares are the note E, etc. Something like that. We get a pretty good representation, but you add in one square amongst all of these, and it still just sticks out like a sore thumb. Funky notes in chords stand out like this. So even though in this arrangement they're introduced very, very quietly, they can still be heard. And it's their subtlety that contributes to this overall aura that we get that I'll probably talk about in a bit. Example number 1, the chord on the word brain.
In my brain.
The chord we have is F sharp, but the funky note is do. So it sounds like this. So this funky note that we're hearing is this one here, which is called the supertonic. What this simply means is that it's the second note in the scale. Note number 1 is here, and note number 2 is there. The supertonic. And then just after that, we get it again on the word remains.
Still remains.
But that one here is a little more surprising. In the original song, the chord here is F sharp major again. And the two sung notes in the original are these two notes.
Still remains.
In Peter and Tim's version, we still get the same top note, but the lower note is now this. The chord is completely changed. We've gone from F sharp to now D sharp. So that's one difference. We're missing the middle note though. And the middle note is what determines if we're major, happy, or minor, sad. So what do they give us instead? The supertonic, that second note. But the second note then slides up to give us the major chord. So subtle. So whilst this arrangement might seem quite straightforward, trust me, it's not. We have a cappella in its rawest form, a lot of homophonic singing the same words at the same time with the same rhythms to each other. There's no beats or sound effects or any cross rhythms or anything like that. So it's these little nuances within this chordal structure that they have that really creates the atmosphere. And then just after that, look how the arrangement opens up.
Within the song.
Sing the same note and then just boom, and then we get the first real deep bass note that we've heard. Again, that bass note could be either of them. I know Tim, so I'm going to assume it's Tim, but does Peter have a range like that? I don't know. And in this arrangement, I can't really tell. Right, we should carry on with the rest of it, but I also finally just wanted to play this section again. This arrangement would be an absolute nightmare to try and transcribe perfectly by ear. When we listen to it, just note there's so much going on. Various rhythms, sustained notes underneath changing chords. It creates all kind of scrunches, and it's very, very difficult to do this and not make it sound like a mess. It's a great arrangement in that respect.
Narrow streets of cobblestone, 'neath the halo of a street lamp, I turn my collar to the cold and damp.
And this arrangement is quite lower register heavy, all things considered. So when we get the falsetto parts, at least so far, they've been quite prominent, such as here.
A street lamp.
Alright, let's carry on, probably to the end. I think it looks like there's about 2 minutes.
And in the naked light I saw 10,000 people, maybe more. Fool said I, you do not know. Silence like a cancer grows. Hear my words that I might teach you. Take my arms that I might reach you. But my words like silent raindrops fell and echoed in the wells of silence. And the people bowed and prayed to the neon god they made. And the sign flashed out its warning in the words that it was forming. And the sign said the words of the prophets are written on the subway walls and tenement halls, and whispered in the sounds.
No, they're not going to finish there. That's so funny, the pose at the end as well. Blimey, like no words about that. That was ridiculous arrangement. Not gonna lie, a lot of the time I kind of forget that there's a camera when I'm doing these, but you're still always a tiny bit in the way in the back of your mind. In this case, I have no idea what my face might have looked like. I'm quite dreading going back to edit this, but we'll see. Apologies if it was horrific. There was just so much going on. Let's go over some of that, because that was ridiculous. And when I say ridiculous, I mean I'm impressed. Like so intricate. So one technique that I've noticed is used quite a lot that I think is really good, I really like it personally, is that how there'll be emphasis on one part that is then used preceding another part, so it's used to then contrast what's going to follow somehow. Here's an example, the bass part. So we get this bass line that's kind of quite prominent there going all the way down, which then leads into this part. We get these really high notes, which then in turn lead into this part.
People writing songs.
Another bass part going down there again. And at this moment the texture's building, it's growing, and then it goes into
Voices never shared.
Voices never shared. We suddenly have a reduction in texture. Fewer voices heard there on voices never shared. It's nice play with the lyrics. And having fewer voices means that each voice stands out more. It's more prominent. I love how we have the high B flat.
Shared. No one dared disturb the sun.
It's so unapologetic, just sustaining itself up there, which creates all these scrunches and dissonances underneath it. There's a very interesting chord with the top few voices there.
Disturb the sun.
We had this. They really love these good filth chords here. Sorry, there's just so much to talk about. I'm just going to go through and pick out the bits that stand out to me. Right, so again, this idea of contrast. Right after that, the top note up there. Before this completely mad chord that we get, where the bass is now the prominent feature.
You do not know.
You know, the bass there acting like a rock. Acting as a foundation. And that just leads into silence like a cancer grows here.
Silence like a cancer grows.
It's another example of wonderful lyric treatment. The sound is loud, it's the opposite of silence, which they're singing about. And it's rising, growing, which they're also singing about. To contrast the next bit, which is suddenly again this reduction in sound and volume.
Hear my words that I might teach you.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like we could analyse every single line in this performance. So much thought has gone into this arrangement. Even here, I mean, this might just me, to be honest. Maybe they didn't consider this at all, but the first time Tim starts singing the melody down an octave,
Hear my words that I might.
hear my words is what he's saying. Yeah, he's now changed what he's been doing, so yeah, I am hearing him. How do we think they're going to treat the words raindrops fell?
Raindrops fell.
It goes up a tiny bit, causing suspense, and then it falls again. But falling to what? Well, falling to this.
And echo.
To this deep echo. Also, like we saw they did before, they've changed the chord here. In the original, the chord we have is F sharp. But they've now changed it to the minor variant by changing that middle note. One thing that really caught my attention as well was the rhythmic bass. Normally it's a staple of a cappella singing, but the first time we hear it is towards the end.
To the neon god they made.
you hear dum dum dum. So you'd expect to have a rhythmic bass kind of driving things along, but there's just been so much going on, it's just not been needed. And then towards the end, let's just listen to this section I'm about to play again. The amount of variety in it and warning sign is the subject matter. A warning should catch your attention, and this does exactly that.
Shout its warning in the words that it was for me.
And then finally, for the ending, we get this dramatic change in tempo and time signature, which of course leads into the ending. How cheeky of them to embody the word silence so literally that we don't even hear it. Right, wow. Well, thank you very, very much for this recommendation. I loved him, and I love him even more now. Peter Hollens, by the looks of it, what a talent, especially if he arranged this. I'm guessing he also has a crazy range. It was quite hard to distinguish who's singing what, but Peter could very well have been singing way down there as well as way up there. A couple of great musical talents here creating this unbelievable music. My final note is just that was an incredibly, incredibly complex arrangement there. I'd listen to this 100 times and I'd still probably only hear about 25% of what's actually going on. If you'd like me to react to a recommendation of yours, you can guarantee it by becoming one of the eggs in my Patreon or YouTube membership linked in the description below. Alright, let's leave it there. As always, thank you very much for watching. Would appreciate a like and subscribe, and I will see you next time.